The wind howled across the frozen fields of Emerson, Manitoba, a merciless roar that swallowed hope whole. It was January 19, 2022, and Jagdish Patel, 39, stood at the edge of a snow-drifted farm, his wife, Vaishaliben, 37, clutching their children, Vihangi, 11, and Dharmik, 3, against the biting cold. They were just 12 meters from the U.S. border, a line that promised a new life, a dream born in their small village of Dingucha, Gujarat, thousands of miles away. The blizzard was relentless, the temperature plunging to negative 35 degrees Celsius, and in the pitch-black night, the family's footsteps faltered. Jagdish wrapped a thin blanket tighter around Dharmik, his small body trembling. "We're almost there," he whispered, his voice cracking against the wind. But the border, so close, felt like a world away. Back in Dingucha, the Patels had been school teachers, respected, but bound by the limits of village life. The promise of America, safety, opportunity, a future for their children, had driven them to risk everything. They'd flown to Toronto on January 12, 2022 on visitor visas, then traveled by road to this desolate border, guided by smugglers who called themselves saviors. Harsh Kumar, Dirty Harry, Patel, had assured them it was safe. His WhatsApp messages brisk, "Dress for cold, you'll be fine." Steve Shand, waiting on the U.S. side in a 15-passenger van, had echoed the confidence. But now, as snow stung their faces and visibility vanished, Jagdish wondered if they'd been betrayed by their own dreams. Vihangi, her ill-fitting boots sinking into the snow, tugged at Vaishaliben's sleeve. "Mama, is this America?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Vaishaliben forced a smile, her own jacket too thin for the cold. "Almost, Beta, just a few more steps." Her heart ached with the lie. The night before, in a cramped motel room near the border, Vihangi had sat on the bed, her eyes wide with questions. "Mama, will we have a big house there? Will I go to school?" Vaishaliben had hugged her tight, whispering, "You'll have everything, Vihangi, everything we dreamed." Now, those words felt like a promise she couldn't keep. The family was part of a group of 11 migrants, all Indian nationals, trudging through the blizzard. The smugglers had instructed them to walk north to south, crossing the invisible line into Minnesota. But the storm was a beast, snowdrifts swallowing their path, and the group began to splinter. Jagdish held Dharmik close, the boy's tiny hands clutching his father's coat. "Papa, it's cold," Dharmik whimpered, his voice barely audible. Jagdish pressed a frozen glove over his son's face, shielding him from the wind. "We're strong, Beta. We'll make it," he said, his voice breaking with desperation. The journey had started with hope. In Toronto, the Patels had met their contact, a man with a clipped voice who handed them off to Harsh Kumar. "You'll walk a short distance," he'd said. Shan's waiting on the other side. The family had paid $87,000, their life savings, for this chance. Jagdish had looked at Vaishaliben that morning, his eyes heavy with doubt. "If we don't do this, what future do our children have?" he'd asked. She'd nodded, resolute. "We do it for them, Jagdish, for Vihangi's school, for Dharmik's dreams." Now, as they stumbled through the snow, those dreams felt buried under the ice. The group's footsteps grew erratic, the blizzard erasing their sense of direction. A woman in the group, her fingers frostbitten, called out for help, but the smugglers' voices crackled faintly over a phone. "Keep going or turn back to Canada." Jagdish tightened his grip on Dharmik, his arm aching from the weight. Vaishaliben held Vihangi's hand, her own fingers numb. "Stay close, Beta," she urged, her voice trembling. Vihangi's boots, too big for her small feet, tripped her and she fell into a drift. Jagdish pulled her up, his breath ragged. "We're a family," he said fiercely. "We stay together." The night before, in the motel, Jagdish had sat with Dharmik on his lap, telling him stories of America. You'll have a big park to play in, beta, he'd said, ruffling his son's hair. Dharmik had giggled, clutching his toy car, a gift from Dingucha. Will it have swings, Papa? Jagdish had laughed, hiding his fear. Swings, slides, everything. Vaishaliben had watched, her heart heavy. Don't promise too much, she had whispered later. We don't know what's waiting. Jagdish had taken her hand. We know it's better than what we left. Now those words haunted. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time blurred in the storm. The family lagged behind the group, their strength fading. Vaishaliben's legs buckled and she slumped against a chain-link fence, mistaking it for the border's edge. Jagdish, we're here, she gasped, her voice weak but hopeful. He knelt beside her, Dharmik still in his arms, the blanket frozen stiff. Vihangi huddled close, her teeth chattering. Mama, I'm scared, she whispered. Vaishaliben pulled her daughter into her embrace, her own body shaking. Don't be, beta. We're so close. We'll be warm soon. Jagdish scanned the darkness, seeing nothing but snow. The other migrants had vanished, either ahead or lost. His heart pounded with a terrible truth. They were alone. He called out, his voice swallowed by the wind. We can't stop, he urged, pulling Vaishaliben to her feet. But her steps faltered, and Dharmik's small body grew heavier. Jagdish pressed his glove harder against his son's face, as if his will alone could keep him warm. The border was there, just meters away, but the cold was stronger, the night darker. The Patels clung to each other, their dreams of America fading with every frozen breath, their love the only warmth left in the endless snow. The blizzard roared on, a merciless wall of snow and ice that buried hope in its path. On January 19, 2022, Jagdish Patel, 39, clung to his son Dharmik, 3, wrapping the frozen blanket tighter around the boy's trembling frame. Just 12 meters from the U.S. border near Emerson, Manitoba, the Patel family, Jagdish, Vaishaliben, 37, Vihangi, 11, and Dharmik, fought to survive the minus 35 degrees Celsius cold. Their dream of America, born in the dusty lanes of Dinguta, Gujarat, had led them here, through smugglers' promises and a treacherous 11-hour trek. Now, as Vaishaliben slumped against a chain-link fence, mistaking it for salvation, and Vihangi shivered beside her, the family's strength waned. Jagdish's voice, hoarse from shouting into the void, still carried defiance. We're almost there, he whispered, though the wind stole his words. But the border, so close, was a mirage in the endless dark. The night before, in a dim motel room near the border, the family had huddled together, their breath visible in the chilly air. Vihangi, her eyes bright with hope, had asked Jagdish, Papa, will I have friends in America? He smiled, brushing her hair back. So many, Betta. You'll be the best student in your school. Dharmik, clutching his toy car, had chimed in. And swings? Jagdish had laughed, pulling him close. Big swings, Dharmik, for you. Vaishaliben had watched, her heart heavy with unspoken fears. Don't fill their heads with too much, she had murmured later, her voice soft but firm. We don't know if we'll make it. Jagdish had taken her hand, his resolve unshaken. We will, Vaishali. For them, we will. Now, as the cold seeped into their bones, those promises felt like fragile threads snapping one by one. The group of 11 migrants had splintered hours ago, lost in the blizzard's chaos. Jagdish's calls for help went unanswered, the smuggler's phone silent. Harsh Kumar, Dirty Harry Patel, had told them to dress warmly, but their jeans and light jackets were no match for the storm. Steve Shand, waiting in his van on the U.S. side, would later claim he didn't know the extent of the danger. But for the Patels, betrayal was a distant thought. Survival was all that mattered. Vaishali Ben's fingers, numb from frostbite, gripped Vihangi's hand. "Stay with me, Betta," she whispered, her voice fading. Vihangi nodded, her ill-fitting boots dragging in the snow. "Mama, I'm trying," she said, her teeth chattering. Jagdish's legs burned with exhaustion, his single arm aching from carrying Dharmeek. The boy's small body was too still, his whimpers silenced by the cold. Jagdish pressed his glove harder over Dharmeek's face, shielding him from the wind's bite. "Hold on, Betha," he murmured, his voice breaking. He remembered the morning they left Dingucha, the village quiet as they slipped away. Neighbors had whispered of others who had made it to America, living lives of promise. Jagdish had looked at Vaishali Ben, their savings drained for the $87,000 smuggling fee. "This is for our children," he'd said. She'd nodded, her eyes fierce. For their future. Now, that future was slipping away, buried under snowdrifts. Vaishali Ben stumbled again, her body heavy against the fence. "Jagdish, I see lights," she gasped, her voice barely audible. He squinted into the darkness, seeing nothing but swirling snow. "Keep going, Vaishali," he urged, pulling her upright. But her strength was fading, her breath shallow. Vihangi clung to her mother, her small frame shaking. "Mama, don't stop," she pleaded, her tears freezing on her cheeks. The night before, Vihangi had curled up beside Vaishali Ben, whispering, "Will we be happy there, Mama?" Vaishali Ben had stroked her hair. "Happier than ever, Betha. You'll see." Now those words echoed like a cruel promise, mocking their struggle. The cold was a predator, relentless and unforgiving. Jagdish's vision blurred, his own body succumbing. He sank to his knees, still cradling Dharmeek, the blanket now a frozen shroud. "We're a family," he whispered, his voice raw. "We stayed together." Vaishali Ben reached for him, her hand trembling as it touched his face. "Always," she said, her eyes locking with his. For a moment, their love was a flicker of warmth against the storm, a defiant spark in the face of despair. The world faded to white, the blizzard swallowing sound and sight. Somewhere, the other migrants staggered on, 7 surviving to tell the tale. But the Patels were alone, their steps slowing until they stopped. Jagdish held Dharmeek close, his gloves still shielding his son's face. Vaishali Ben leaned against the fence, Vihangi in her arms, their breaths fading into silence. The border, just 12 meters away, remained out of reach. Their dreams of schools, swings, a new life lay frozen in the snow, alongside the backpack holding Dharmeek's toy car and Vihangi's clothes. Days later, a snowplow driver would find the aftermath, alerting authorities. The world would learn of the Patel's sacrifice, their story a heartbreaking echo of countless others. In Dingricha, the village mourned, its empty houses a testament to dreams that led to tragedy. The smugglers, Harsh Kumar and Shand, would face justice, their convictions a hollow victory for a family lost. But in that final moment, as the Patels held each other, their love was their last defiance against the cold. They had chased a better life, and though they fell short, their bond endured, a fragile light in the darkness, unbroken even by death.